Doesn't really matter, and all this stuff has been covered up. Now there are plans on Chernobyl, and you can actually kind of know what happened basically based on what's actually being housed there. Like I said, there's a conveyor belt system which somehow hot steam goes over here. This place is deceptively large, by the way. This building is huge. It's really big. Anyway, this houses the steam. The steam and other things, and I forget if those are open or not, but basically this is where the radiator, this is like a giant radiator or something like that, or the steam turbines. The steam turbines are down here, I think, or something like that, and then the air cooling thing is up here. It's basically, I think what happens is the hot steam goes from here and then goes down into here, I think, and somewhere around in here there are steam turbines all along the bottom, or all along some level. Anyway, so the steam goes through all the steam turbines, and then it goes up, and then it goes blah blah or something like this, and then it cools off in this section. This is like a giant radiator, I think, if I remember right. Okay, and it also extends over into here. I'm not exactly sure, but basically, okay. So anyway, and there's this loading dock right here. This thing, material is made over here and stuff like that, and then I think it might be shipped over that way. If you look at the plans, you can basically know what happened at Chernobyl. Pretty much. But basically there's a loading dock over here. Pretty much. Anyway, so some people, that's why they say robbery and that kind of stuff. So there's 2 or 3 main gates right here. People shot their way past the main gate, drove all the way in here and around, and came back in here, and were attacking and shooting directly. And there's bullet holes all inside the back section of this building where the loading dock is. Basically, there's bullet holes. Anyway, so the fire actually happened right about here or right over here. On one of these sides, the fire actually happened up in here or over there, basically. Or the fire happened down at the bottom. Anyway, though, there's a fire down at the bottom or something like that, and it melted its way up through the floors or something like that. Basically, a fire raged over here for about 2 or 3 days. They just contained it. They couldn't put it out because it was a nuclear fire, basically. It was giving off massive amounts of radiation. Just so you walk in there and you go, ugh! And die. Basically, if you walked over in here pretty much and got in line with the doors, you would just die because it was a thorium and uranium fire, which basically anybody who knows about thorium, imagine thorium and uranium burning together. Massive amounts of radiation, just radiation everywhere. Anyway, even outside the walls was insanely dangerous. And if you got in line or anywhere where you'd come around and actually peek your head in to where the radiation would hit you directly, it's like instant death. Okay, so basically there was a massive fire in here. Pretty much, it was burning, and they couldn't get to it because, well, they kept dying. So, understandable. Anyway, though, and somehow the pipes had gotten damaged. See right here, this section cools the reactor, basically, pretty much. This section right here cools that section, basically. So anyway, so the fire was right here, and somehow one of these there's some bullet holes, and they're able to access this through down in here. And they're able to look at that, and somehow one of these pipes had actually gotten damaged and was leaking radiation. So we had a fire here, and we had a radiation leak here. And pretty much, it was like the worst case scenario. People had broken in, attacked, and it was pretty much an attack and robbery. They stole a bunch of thorium and uranium. Anyway, this happened sometime around 1940, 1930 or something. That the site had been in operation for years, and finally some people had managed to overpower the gates and get their way in. Anyway, they caused a fire, basically, that raged out of control over there inside that one section. And then basically, and plus, like I say, let me fix my pants. Anyway, I'm being dramatic. Anyway, so basically, this was a giant radiator section right here, if you look. Okay, and it extended out about into here, and then past this, I forget what's over here, but loading dock. There's radiators and stuff. There's stuff and you can get the plans on it and see how it works. And basically, you can pretty much guess what happened. Pretty much. But basically, they could access this section right here without going into that section. There was walls and everything protecting it. So somehow one of the pipes over here had gotten damaged. And there was also damage on a pipe over in here. Now, they couldn't do anything about this right here because there's a giant fire right here or right here, somewhere just past the loading dock. This is a loading dock, and you can go all the way in and see in there and go in underneath the reactor and all kinds of stuff over here. Anyway, it's all about the building. You can look on the plans and basically guess what happened. But pretty much there's an attack here, a giant fire, and leaked up into here. Anyway, at the top floor there was stuff being stored or something like that, thorium and uranium or something like that. Anyway, somehow it got to the thorium and uranium storage, but this isn't the main storage. The main storage is actually, see, they manufacture it over here. But and then I think it goes down the conveyor belt into the 2 storage buildings that are located adjacent to the building. So anyway, because it's a big conveyor, it's basically a factory. Stuff is manufactured over here, and then it travels down the conveyor belt and goes into the 2 storage areas. Because there's 2 storage areas, it's a Y, basically there's a reactor and it manufactures, and then there's the steam and steam and manufacturing area, and then there's the other thing, and then there's the loading dock and stuff, and then it travels down the conveyor belt and into the 2 side pools. It's a Y. There's that big Y thing. Anyway, that walkway is a big conveyor belt that can transport stuff to the 2 storage buildings, which are just adjacent to there. So anyway, so that's how it works basically, and it's a giant radiator and steam manufacturing. The power is manufactured right here basically, and there's radiator and a bunch of other stuff, and then there's a loading dock, and then there's some storage up in here, but mostly the storage is over here. Off in this section at the 2 adjacent buildings, which I believe house the heavy water and other stuff. So anyway, yeah, and I think one was thorium and one was uranium. There's 2 storage buildings, and one housed one thing and one housed the other thing. Put them together and it's very bad. That's why they were housed separately. But there was some amount of it together right here because you manufacture both of them at the same time or something like that. Anyway, or something like that. It was basically a manufacturing plant that also produced power. So anyway, that's what Chernobyl was. It was state-of-the-art, best of its kind. And like I say, whatever happened there, it was not an accident. It was an attack or something. And everybody there said it was a robbery. And it was robbed more than once. When the cleanup crew came to clean up, they really weren't trying to clean up radiation. They were there to clean up what was being stored there, which was basically the uranium and thorium, or uranium or whatever, and thorium, uranium or something. Anyway, and the thorium that was being housed there. So basically, it was robbed twice. It was robbed once by force, where they killed everybody, and then it was robbed the second time later on by the cleanup crew. Anyway, whatever, yes, it's a rare metal. Yes, it's highly valuable. But I mean, it's like, well, whatever, man. I mean, personally, it's dangerous to even going near it. People go, oh, it's so valuable. It's like, it's also incredibly dangerous. You're nuts. And anyway, though, but it's hard to come by, and you can't. It's not naturally occurring. Anyway, so a bunch of people who just saw dollar signs. It's like, you're nuts. Yes, it's usable, but only if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to get killed by it. Anyway, though, a bunch of people sent a bunch of people there to pick it up or something like that, and basically a lot of people died from exposure. Anyway, like I said, you can't shoot radiation. Incredibly dangerous. You live and die by your meter. You go, if you hear it going beep 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 beep, run. That's a bad thing. Anyway, or something like that. Basically, when it comes to radiation and all that stuff, and the meters can't pick up every single type of radiation. There are some types of radiation that the meters don't even sense. Where you'll be walking in and you'll be like, that's why most people use the film, because the film actually picks up more types of radiation than the meters do. So anyway, basically, the meters don't sense every single type of radiation. They only sense like 3 or 2 types of radiation. And usually if there's one type of radiation, there's usually the other type of radiation. So theoretically, yes. Anyway, don't mess around with it unless you really know what you're doing. basically.